split teams and staggered hours, more workers are allowed to return to the office, but employers are not rushing to have them back.
Surprisingly strong, Singapore's manufacturing output rebounds after 3 months of declines.
And not sure where to eat out this weekend? We have you covered with food editor Tan Hsueh Yun's recommendations. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Dylan Ang.
And I'm Haryanto Diman. Now you can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Let's begin with the latest on the COVID-19 situation here. For the second straight day, there are 0 cases reported in the community among the 11 new infections confirmed today. This is also the 4th time this week that there are no local infections. But there were 2 imported cases who had been placed on stay-home notice upon their arrival in Singapore. And more details will be released later tonight.
From banks to startups, a range of companies have told the Straits Times there's no rush to get their staff back into the office from Monday. People are now used to working from home and it remains very much the default arrangement.
The new guidelines allowing more workers back in the office are the most significant easing of restrictions at workplaces since the circuit breaker was imposed in April. You remember scenes like this when Singapore came to a standstill during the partial lockdown. Raffles Place, usually buzzing with office workers, was mostly empty as people stayed at home.
Straits Times readers have many questions about the new guidelines. For example, I want to go back to the office full-time because my home is not conducive for work. Can I do so?
We're now joined by political correspondent Linette Lai. Hey Linette, now your Ask ST article addressed some pressing questions that ST readers have regarding the relaxed workplace guidelines. What are the main concerns that employees and employers have?
So on the employee side, I think you have people who feel that, look, I've been working well at home, I'm productive enough, so why do I have to return to the office? On the other hand, you also have people who feel that my home is terrible for working, it's not conducive, it's too distracting, I want to go back to work full time, and why must I stay at home half the time? On the employer side, you have employers who believe that face time with employees is important. They say that to build rapport in the team, they need to have meetings. It's easier to discuss things via physical meetings rather than Zoom meetings. And rightly or wrongly, they may believe that it's easier to track productivity when their employees are physically in the workplace.
Did any of the concerns raised surprise you? Any misconceptions about the new guidelines?
I don't think there were any real misconceptions. I think the guidelines were quite clear. But of course, there is another round of adjustment, just as people had to adjust to working from home. Now they have to adjust to going back to the office. Some people may be very used to their work from home setup and, it takes some time for them to get back to the work from office mindset. There are also some people who say that my workplace may not follow the rules. We may not have the space for safe distancing. These are things that need to be worked out, and at the same time I also think employers need to be practical, need to be flexible. They cannot just go back to the way things were before the circuit breaker. That would not work out. So they need to have flexible work arrangements. They need to acknowledge the limitations that we're working with right now.
Now, could you share with us, some of the responsibilities that employers have to undertake in ensuring that their workers remain safe?
So for starters, everyone has to wear a mask in the workplace when they're working. Employees should be spaced 1 meter apart. If you have work-related events, they have to be kept at 50 people, and those 50 people also have to be spaced 1 meter apart. The usual cleaning, disinfection of workspaces. Employers should be aware that if a cluster of work infections is found in the workplace, their businesses could be suspended if there are public health reasons for the authorities doing so. So it's something that they have to take very seriously.
Well, thank you so much, Linette, for coming onto the show to share more with us. Now, you can read Linette's Ask ST piece on straitstimes.com. We were speaking to political correspondent Linette Lai.
In other local news, Education Minister Lawrence Wong said today there's no need to worry about robots and machines replacing humans. And the way forward for tomorrow's workers is to focus instead on doubling down on human strengths. He added robots and computers will never be able to think creatively, have face-to-face conversations, brainstorm and challenge one another, or come up with solutions as a team. While Mr. Wong acknowledged that programming, coding and IT are important skill sets, he said, quote, "We do not have to learn how to be better computers to beat the computer."
Meanwhile, Singapore's manufacturing output rebounded last month, ending a 3-month slump. This was bolstered by strong growth in semiconductor production and a return to growth for the volatile biomedical segment. The Economic Development Board said today that factory production grew a strong 13.7% compared with a year ago. The bounce back in last month's readings followed an upwardly revised 7.6% decline in July's factory output. Meanwhile, the biomedical manufacturing segment rebounded from July's 24.3% contraction to record an uptake of 8.4% last month.
For the second time in over a month, Google services were down for an hour this morning. The global outage, which began around 9 a.m. Singapore time, affected the company's services like Gmail, calendar, chat and video conferencing. The tech giant said most of the problems were resolved by 10:07 a.m.
Making global headlines this Friday, the next move in Malaysia's unfolding political drama now rests with King Sultan Abdullah, but he will not be granting an audience to anyone for a week. The palace said he is unwell and has to remain in hospital for observation. Opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim sparked an uproar this week after declaring that he had secured a majority in parliament, a claim which Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has dismissed.
Seoul's presidential office said today that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has apologized over the killing of a South Korean fisheries official on Tuesday. Kim apologized, quote, for disappointing President Moon and South Koreans rather than helping them in the face of the malicious coronavirus. Apologies from the North, especially those attributed to Mr. Kim, are extremely rare.
Australia's Victoria State looks set to lift some lockdown measures after reporting just 14 new cases today. Victoria's Premier Daniel Andrews declared that the state is winning the battle against the coronavirus and will make an announcement on Sunday about easing restrictions.
China has reported its first local asymptomatic cases in over a month. 2 port workers in Qingdao responsible for unloading frozen seafood were detected after routine testing. The new cases will intensify concern in China over whether frozen imported products are infectious. Fancy a chance to fly an Airbus or a Boeing plane? Now you can, with Thai Airways opening up its Airbus and Boeing flight simulators to the public. Customers can get into mock cockpits of the Airbus A380 and Boeing 777 starting next month. Prices start at $381 or 524 Singapore dollars for 2 people for half an hour. Thai Airways joins carriers including Qantas Airways and Singapore Airlines in turning to innovative ways to generate fresh revenue streams amid the travel slump caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
You know, Dylan, life is too short for bad food.
Sure is.
Thankfully for us, we have some recommendations courtesy of our colleagues over at Live. So what's on the menu, Dylan?
Now, we have a lot of recommendations from our colleagues at Live. You know, if you are feeling a bit adventurous, you know, do you fancy a satay fix with a unique twist? So that's one. We also have, perhaps some spicy ramen, with a tantalizing chicken thigh. Or Harento, if you're a fan of a double-crusted pie, we have a great one from a Steak and Guinness double-crusted pie. Or if you are craving the ever-favorite local food, what about the traditional hiang with a mala twist?
Already drooling from all the delightful options. But without any further delay, let's bring in food editor Tan Hsueh Yun to share more on her food picks. Hsueh, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Let's focus on the satay first. Now, aside from how good the pork satay tastes, which you shared in your story, there's also a story behind why it's special to you. Tell us more about that, Hsueh.
Well, for years, I've been eating Apui's pork satay at friends' homes. I never encountered him in Tiong Bahru, but that's where he used to sell the satay from a push cart. And this is in the 20th century where illegal hawking is just not on, right? But he would do it and he kept getting busted. And on weekends, he would go to people's homes and he will grill satay for house parties. And that's how I got to know Apui and talk to him and watch him work and eat his very delicious pork satay with the chunky peanut sauce and the pineapple puree. And then during the circuit breaker time, some of my friends got to know that he had gone legit. So he was now selling satay at a cafe in Pearls Hill Terrace. And so of course, when we were able to go dine out again, I went to check it out and found Apui again, and I'm really happy that he's now got a legit gig and I can eat, his satay anytime I want without having to order a minimum of 500 sticks.
Now, partnerships like that of Mr. Ang and the cafe, are helping to preserve hawker culture. But what else can be done to further this cause?
Okay. Well, see, this is a very interesting collaboration because the guys who run 195 Pearl Hill Cafe didn't just buy over the recipe for like 50,000 or whatever it was, right? And then learn all the tricks and then, and then take the recipe with them. So what they've done is they've taken Mr. Ang under their wing. And actually, I don't know who is taking who under whose wing because they've given him a platform and he's kind of teaching them how to make his terrific pork satay. So I think that collaborations like these mean a lot more than just paying money for a recipe. And I would like to see more people doing something like this, giving the hawker the due recognition, acknowledging that he is masterful at his craft, and being willing to learn and to do whatever it takes to be as good as him. And I think that's the key. And it's not just a mercenary exchange of money for recipes.
Good advice there, Hsueh. Now, Hsueh, this week's food picks also feature chai ngoh hiang and sambal, Mim's fabulous pies and matsukiya. Why do you handpick these three offerings?
Well, matsukiya because it offers really good value for money and the food is really good. The set lunch is like 25 plus and it's a lot of food and all very well done and well thought out. So I think that's a very good addition to our food scene. And it's kind of like a middle ground between really high-end yakitori and mass market yakitori. So very welcome in the scene. Then the other two are home-based food businesses which are booming in Singapore right now. And I've made it a point to include them with every food pick that I do, or most picks that I do, just because it's a very interesting development on the scene. And I'm trying to see who is going to be still standing a year from now. So chai ngoh hiang and Mim's fabulous pies, I think, will be standing for a good long time. Chai has got regular original ngoh hiang. It's started by 3 siblings, Chua siblings, and they're so good. And they're so easy to cook. I mean, instead of deep frying them, I just chuck them in my oven toaster and it works really fine. And it crisps up the skin and it's delicious. And then Mim's fabulous pies also, just get them frozen. They're cheaper, 80 cents cheaper if you get them frozen. You just brush some beaten egg on them and stick them in the oven still frozen. And 40 minutes later, you have a meal. And the pies, double crusted pies, are so good. And if you watch the Great British Bake Off, you would know that the most horrendous thing to happen to a pie is to have a soggy bottom. Mim's pies never have soggy bottoms.
Well, thank you so much, Hsueh, for your recommendations. You already got us very hungry. Now, we were speaking, of course,
I'm hungry too.
Well, we were speaking to food editor Tan Hsueh Yun. You can read all about her recommendations on straitstimes.com. And those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Dylan Ang. Have a good weekend and we will see you on Monday.